All right, so this is the Aeon Pro pump action upgrade kit that I've developed. First and foremost, thanks to everyone on Reddit who had been hyping me up through this process the entire time for the past couple of months. I'm finally able to get this out to people and get this on Etsy and start making sales for it and everything to get it out to people. Big thing here, before I go into kind of explaining what this is, if you're coming here for a build guide from Etsy, if you've already bought one, that is gonna start at this point. And then also there's a little bit of instruction on the AFG as well that is really important. So that will start here. So that being in mind, you can stay if you want to, but for those who haven't bought a kit, this is just for you, basically explaining what some of the purposes and functions of this kit are. It is a pump action upgrade kit directly created for the Aeon Pro. It has 14 3D printed components, so that came with the Aeon Pro, and this is a Nerf stock, but obviously it has the Nerf stock lug here. So this is the base kind of blaster without all the accessories and everything. Just 14 3D printed parts, some internal, some visible, and then you have 2 machined aluminum bars and a custom, not machined, but custom aluminum barrel on the inside there. It's about 18 inches long. That's taking off the stock from the front muzzle to this back stock lug is about 18 inches. I think I don't own a Nexus Pro, but I think it's about 26 inches long for the Nexus Pro. It's got a 4 7/8 inch long barrel, which I don't own a Nexus Pro, but I think it's about 15 centimeters. I think is what the Nexus Pro has, which is like it's about under an inch shorter, but still a lot longer than what you came with originally. What else is there? Again, 14 parts, I already mentioned everything. That's what you're getting from here. I've had some questions about files as well, if I will produce those. I'm looking into it. I think I'm gonna start selling parts first for a little bit and then kind of move into that direction and then sell hardware as well as a separate kind of product. But, you know, big thing for me is like I've put in probably 5 months of effort and really almost worked every day to get this to where it is. So, you know, like you're paying for that when you buy this. So I put enough respect in myself to make a quality product, and I put enough respect in the hobby to make something that was fair and honest. And I'm transparent about all my stuff. So just give me the respect back and don't steal any of my stuff or do anything like that, and you know, it should be fine. If you have any sort of questions about what may be in a gray area about that, just email me or send me a message and we can talk through it. But, you know, please be courteous to the people in this community so that way we can continue to make cool things as a larger group. I love this thing. I've had a lot of fun making it. It's very comparable to what you would have in a Nexus Pro. It's very comparable to some of the pump action upgrade kits that are out on Etsy, Thingiverse, other platforms for sure. Here's my explanation of kind of why this exists, where it stands within those kind of benchmark products. Obviously, in terms of the Nexus Pro, that's a big deal as it's kind of bigger brother to the Aeon Pro. You know, why even make one if it already exists? Well, yeah, it's going to be more expensive than buying a Nexus Pro for sure, because you're going to be buying the Aeon Pro and then you're going to be buying the kit. But what you're buying is quality. This is a real premium kit. It's built with really high standards. It's been designed with really high standards, and it's printed with the same standards. I don't really like to make things that I can't stand behind them and make sure and tell people, yeah, like this is quality, right? So that's just going to make this whole product better. The thing that's great about the Nexus Pro is it has that pump action, you know, process, which is, you know, arguably better than having the top prime. Well, you got that now, and as a stock, which the Aeon Pro doesn't have. You've got the ability to put on any sort of stock you want, so those points are brought up. Everything else, it's like, well, you know, what else is there? Well, the Nexus Pro has plastic priming bars and has a plastic bolt that's going to be moving this back and forth, as did the Aeon Pro, outside of the pump action. But with this kit, you know, you now have aluminum priming bars similar to the Mark 1.1 that Dartzone has, and you have a stainless steel push pin that is the bolt for the Aeon Pro here, which, again, Nexus Pro has made out of plastic. And while that's good and fair and works perfectly fine out of the box, if you're upgrading the spring or you know, over time, those parts may wear out, especially, you know, as years progress, plastic gets more brittle, and those are going to be the first things that are going to want to give and break. Whereas you're not going to deal with that with this. With aluminum parts, and steel, you're much safer to breakages and things like that. You have this cover over the top. You know, I've seen, again, the whole idea of there are other products out there, there are other pump action kits that are on Etsy and Thingiverse, and those guys that have created things, you know, hats off to them. They've done a great job. Their contributions to this hobby are immense, and without their contributions, I probably wouldn't have even embarked on making this, because, you know, I saw what they did and I was like, man, that's cool. I'm gonna try mine out too. Try something out with that. But you know, what a lot of those have is they don't have some of the semantics in terms of the pump grip, and they keep a lot of the internals exposed, which I'm not a huge fan of, because, you know, if you have any dust, dirt, debris from being in storage, outside, at wars, getting dust and dirt in your internals here, the bolt, this is the guts of the blaster, and if that starts to get dirty, you know, you can have things wear out or be messy, and then you got to clean it. I mean, this is important. So having this middle section that has a jam door, you can still access things, but having this middle section covered up was super important to me. Being able to have a true drop-in kit, where there's no cutting, no drilling, no gluing required. You just drop in the parts and you're good to go. And then being able to have a legitimate pump grip here, where you don't need any sort of attachments to be able to use this. Mine comes with one, which again is like a bonus to what you're getting with what I have. So it just makes things super nice here. But you have a legitimate pump grip that you can use, which I think a lot of people kind of forget about the haptic feedback that a lot of people want to have with some of these kits. So with that in mind, you know, I'm not trying to be a snake oil salesman or something. I'm just trying to explain where I'm coming from with my kit and what its uses are. Because again, this is a space flooded with breech loading pump action blasters. And I think, you know, you're getting, again, something that's really, really useful with a lot of different attachment points at the top, at the bottom here, the pump grip, different barrel options, different stock options. The parts are premium. They're printed well. They're thick and robust. And it's visually cohesive as well. You know, these lines, how they connect across the top is really smooth, and I was really happy to get that looking great. And all these details are just super cool. I mean, I can't even lie to you. This is a cool looking kit. So I'm not gonna continue talking about this. I'm gonna get right into the build video and stop wasting your time. But that's kind of why this exists. This is a really cool project for me. I'm glad to get it out to people. All right, so now we're gonna go into the actual build section to explain how to go from having your normal Aeon Pro into building out the pump action upgrade kit. So some of the tools you're gonna need, you're gonna need 2 screwdrivers. You're gonna need screwdrivers for one for just the screws in the shell itself, and then a larger Phillips head for the parts and screws that come with the kit. I don't necessarily know exactly what screwdrivers you'll need, but I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. You may need a small flathead screwdriver or just a paper clip. Paper clip is probably what I would recommend because it's just easier to get. And you may need a pair of pliers. You know, these are printed components, so, you know, I'm gonna make sure they're as good as possible, but you know, if you have anything to deburr or anything that's a little tight, you know, having some sort of pliers, these are plastic eyeglass pliers, or sandpaper or an X-Acto knife, you know, that's up to you. That's up to what you need. I won't have them out here. But of course, you'll also need all the parts that are included. So the 14 parts that come with the kit. You'll need your aluminum bars, your barrel, if you choose to use that barrel, and then all the screws and nuts and washers you'll need as well. So first and foremost, we're gonna get into the Aeon Pro. So we're gonna unscrew this whole thing. First, I'm just gonna remove the magazine assembly to get that out of the way. Just like that. So we're gonna get right to this. So let's get unscrewing all of these screws. Now, of course, with this kit, you won't be using the priming bar. So you can screw that back together and put it in your parts bin if you choose to, you know, hold on to it. Because again, you can bring this back to how you got it out of the box, you know, stock. There's no changes that are going to happen directly to the Aeon Pro with this kit. Or you can kind of salvage the screws from the top prime for other parts of the Aeon Pro. Because mine, I know for certain, has 1 or 2 screws that were stripped out of the box. So if you want to salvage those screws and use them for the rest of the build, you're welcome to do so. All right, so we've got the Aeon Pro open and ready to access. Along with the top prime that we won't be needing, you can also put into storage your muzzle, because this isn't going to be used with the kit. You may or may not want to use the barrel. It's up to you. The kit allows you to use the original barrel that comes with the blaster. So that's directly up to you whether you want to kind of have less performance. You know, if you're playing in games that have that, where, you know, if you've got an FPS limit, it may be nice to use this smaller barrel. But the kit comes with a longer barrel that's closer to the length of the Nexus. It's about 1 inch shorter. So I'll go over both of those. All right, so we won't be needing the muzzle, but let's say you do want to use the original barrel that comes with it. First thing you're going to want to do is take your new muzzle, okay? And you're going to want to get your first adapter piece, the front adapter. I like to call this the Boo piece because it kind of looks like a little Boo with his arms up and everything there. But what you're going to notice, it may be hard to see on camera, but there's a little ridge on the about halfway through right here, and then there's another ridge here. The original barrel only goes to this ridge right here, so you should be able to push this in, and it shouldn't be able to go any further. I wouldn't wrench it or force it in. If it's stopping, that's how you know it's good to go, right? And we're just going to take our Boo, and we're going to flip it upside down and have his arms go down, and we're going to put that into the hole here, right? So we're just going to put it in to the muzzle and try to get this in an angle where you can see. Okay, and it's just going to stick out just like that. And then we're going to take that original orange piece that's a part of the breech, get that barrel in there, and then just put it back into the shell. And you can put your screw back in, screw it back together, and you're good to go with that original barrel. You won't be able to use the flash hider or any sort of scar when you do this, but again, this is kind of if you need the FPS limit. Now, I would recommend you use the aluminum barrel that comes with the kit. You're gonna get better performance. You're gonna get a tighter barrel fit as well. So we're just gonna take the aluminum barrel out, put it to the side, and we're gonna get the new barrel here. And we're just gonna do the same thing, but again, you'll notice that ridge that I pointed out before in that second ridge, it's gonna go to that second one. So you should see that now it's a lot deeper into that piece. The other piece is about here. This goes a little bit farther, okay? And now if you're gonna be using this smaller barrel, you're gonna need the other adapter piece, which is this back adapter. Okay, so you just slide it over the edge. It's got a tight tolerance, so it needs a little bit of force. There we go. So I would recommend putting this on first before you put it into the blaster because it requires a little bit of force to get it on there. But this is just kind of what keeps the seal between the barrel and this orange piece because it's loose in here. This basically just slides over and keeps that seal relatively secured. You can wrap a layer of electrical tape around this if you would like to, or add a little bit of hot glue if you want to make sure that seal is perfect. Or probably your best solution is just to take some electrical tape, or in this case Teflon tape, and wrap it around the end of the barrel, and then when you put it into that orange piece, you have a better seal initially before even having the adapter piece make that seal. So I would recommend doing this anyway, because it's a cheap and easy way to build that seal up. But otherwise, I would say you're pretty good to go. Now, in terms of putting it in the barrel, instead of having the Boo's arms upside down like we had before, we're gonna have it up again, and we're gonna put it into the barrel that way. And you'll notice, if you put it in this way, it goes all the way down, okay? Whereas before, when the Boo arms were this way, and it's that flush, turn around 180 degrees, put it down, if I can get it lined up, and now it's all the way at the front here. So that's really, really cool. That's one of my favorite parts of this build, is being able to have that there. So this is the barrel I'm gonna use. So I'm gonna continue putting this together and continuing with the build after this point. So I'm gonna get that lined up, get that in there. It's a nice fit, and I'm just gonna fit that over the top and screw this whole thing together. While you have the blaster open right now, this is a good time if you want to replace springs or do any other sort of additions to the internals, like adding one of those like 3D printed stops inside the breech that makes it half star only. This is a good time to do it, you know, while you have the blaster open. Might as well do it now because it's just a good opportunity for you to get to that. But I'm good. This is what I like to keep with my kit. I don't want to do anything else, so I'm just gonna close it up, screw everything back together, and then after the jump, I'll come back and explain some more things. All right, so now we have everything put back together. I actually forgot one screw, but you can see that that new muzzle is attached. That's the only thing that's kind of inside the shell right now. Everything from here on out gets added to the outside. So it makes things super easy to continue from here. So the next thing we're gonna do is start getting this breech together. So we're going to need our 2 slides, which should be, you know, mirrors of each other. We're going to need the one single number 8 washer. There's only one in the kit, yes. There's a reason for that. There's not 2, so if you see one, there's a reason for that. You're gonna want your push pin, which is this guy right here, which is super important to the breech itself. And you're gonna need your 2 barrel alignment pieces. So this keeps the barrel from tilting back and forth. It keeps everything centered because you can see all that wiggle room in there. So the first thing we're gonna do is try to figure out how we're gonna use this. So I'm right-handed, so I'm gonna be using the blaster with my hand here. And so my other hand, the left hand, is gonna be along the blaster like this. The push pin itself sticks out from the side of the blaster. So this key ring, I don't want it to go on this side where it's gonna rub against my forearm, so I'm gonna put it this way. The way the kit is set up, you have this ball bearing in there that's really hard to compress, so the 3D printed parts actually kind of wear out faster than that wants to compress. So that's what this washer is. This washer is so that way that ball bearing has something to kind of latch onto and it holds itself in place, metal on metal, that's not gonna give out. So basically you're gonna wanna put that at the end of the push pin. So it's gonna go on this side. And again, I don't want it to get in the way of my forearm. So if you're right-handed, I would put the washer on the left side, and vice versa. If you're left-handed, put the washer on the right piece. So I'm going to take the left side piece, this one, and you can see both of these pieces have these little slits going on the side here. So just make sure you pick the right one for your usage, and it doesn't really matter which way you orient the washer, but you just take the washer and you put it in that gap, and this is where that paper clip comes into place, or that small flathead screwdriver. You're just going to take it and push it all the way in until it lines up with that hole, and you can see now that washer is right in line. Also, the easiest way to remove the washer from the slide, if you need to remove it or have any issues with it, is it's hard to see, but you've got a little hole right there that you can take that paper clip you used, unfold it to get that point, and just pop it in that little slot there and just push that washer out. So if you have any issues, you can just use that spot there to fix your problem. So now that we got that all figured out, we're gonna take the right side, and we're gonna put our push pin through it initially. These are new parts, so they're gonna be a little tight. So there, and then we're gonna take our first alignment piece, and we're gonna put the skinny side in first, and then the thicker side. And it'll make sense when you put it together. You can't put it in the other way. So we're gonna do that. And then we're gonna put this along the shell, and we're gonna get it through the first bolt area, right? So you can see it sticking out right there, just like this. We're gonna take the other side of our bolt and just get it there and keep pushing through these pieces until it's sticking out there. And then lastly, we're going to take the other side of our slide, make sure that's all lined up properly. And you probably can't see this, but I'm going to get it to a point where you can. There you go. So you can see it's in there. I'm just going to keep pushing. There we go. So you can see that there. And then you're just going to push until you hear it click. So there we go. And you should, I mean, it might not show up on camera, but there's the ball bearing is right there. You can see it. So if you can see it on the other side of that washer, you know you're doing well. And I'm not pulling super tight, but that's not giving on me. So that's good. That's what you want. Awesome. So the bolt is already set up. Now we're going to put that middle piece in. That's going to cover up our internals here. So what we're going to need is one of our 6/32 nuts here that you can see is going to go in here. You see there's a little hexagon shaped channel in here. And that's so that way you can put the piece in like that and just slide it down. And you can see the metal in that hole. That's where the nut is now. Okay, so we're going to take our middle piece, slide back our bolt just a little bit so it fits in there nice and snug. Get that in, make sure to kind of tilt it down so that washer or that nut stays in place. Good, and then we're going to take one of our screws, one of our many screws here, get that in the hole, and then I'm just going to take my screwdriver and just screw it in. I'm not gonna wrench it down, but it's tight enough that that is good to go. Okay, and that is just what you want. Everything is functioning just as it needs to. So next, before we go into anything else with the main blaster, we're going to go into that back assembly. So we're talking about the stock piece here, and then what I call the back piece. So repeating what we kind of did for the muzzle to the middle piece, we're going to do a similar thing here. So we're going to take a nut, and we're going to align it so that way it goes in. There's only one way this aligns and falls into place, and you can see that that is now in that little gap. And we're going to cover over with our back piece, and that's going to hold that nut into place as well. I'm just going to put the screw through that hole, and we're just going to tighten that down like that. Okay, so there's one part completed. And this whole assembly is going to slide onto the back here. This is only attached by one point here, so if you have any resistance from this piece or any resistance from this piece and one part wants to move and another part doesn't, don't force it because you might break the attachment point here. So just lightly kind of wiggle into place until everything fits. So before we do that, we're going to take our last nut here, and you can see there's a hexagon shaped hole right here. So we're going to take our nut and just, I'm going to align it off camera. There we go. So you see that's aligned properly. There's only one way that goes. And you see there's a little T piece that's in the shell here. Let me see if I can, yeah. So that piece there, there is a T in that back piece. So you're just going to want to slowly kind of get that, make sure this back piece here is moving where it needs to, and this piece is slowly just kind of get it in place. There we go. So everything is fitting right. And this back piece is fitting over that T, it's fitting over the middle piece, and then the stock piece, you should be able to see the screw port in this hole here, and this little section in the shell is perfectly encompassed by this area. So that's how you know you've got everything lined up properly. And then we're gonna take one of those screws again, and we're just gonna screw that down. Okay, so that whole top assembly is now completed and has filled up the gaps in that shell. Next, I think we're gonna do the whole pump grip. Okay, so we're gonna take one of our aluminum bars. They're symmetrical, so you can really put them in either way you want to, and just put it into one of these side pieces. You can see the holes are lined up there. You can technically push it a little bit further than the piece wants to, but just align the holes up. That's what you want to focus on, is that those holes are lined up properly. And so we're just going to take 2 screws and we're gonna screw that in place. All right, so we got those screwed in, and we're gonna do the same on this side. So we're gonna take that aluminum bar, our second one, and we're just gonna get that lined up. I'm gonna do this side. The screw holes seem to be a little bit straighter this way. Yep, they are. And we're gonna put in those 2 screws. All right, so now that we've got the 2 aluminum bars attached to our 2 slides, now we need to take our pump grip, and you can see the 2 gaps where the aluminum bar should fit through. Just as easy as sliding this onto the front. Getting those 2 bars centered. There we go. And pushed in. This is a brand new part, so it's gonna be a little tight. There we go, there's one. Let's see if the other one is doing what it needs to. Yep, there we go. So make sure those screws are aligned properly, and take more of those screws we have been using and do these last 4 screws. You know, with these parts, these screws can really tighten down. If you really want to wrench them down, I wouldn't really recommend it. You know, you don't want to have your prints split on you, which, I mean, I wouldn't say they would if you did, but it's just going to make these prints last a little bit longer, especially if you happen to need to take this apart in the future. You don't want to have to open this up for the first time and have your parts not be what they used to be. So just tighten them down until they're nice and tight, but don't over crank it. All right, so now we've got basically everything together. We've got a couple more parts that we need to focus on. The stock itself should feel pretty secure on there, but there may be a little bit of rock. I have this little stock pin that you just put in here. When you get it, it might be really tight, or it might be tighter. So before you put it in all the way, just kind of wiggle it back and forth until you kind of get enough room in there. Again, this is like, most of these parts are coming straight off the printer when you get them, so they're gonna need a little bit of love and care in order to get them where you want. But once you get it to a point where you feel like you're gonna be able to move this a little bit, just push it all the way through. The only way it can really align is this way, because that's the only way that lies flat on the shell. And it has this extension, because if you ever need to remove it, you just spin it 90 degrees. Gives you a little bit of a handle. You can get your finger under there and just pop it out like that. All right, so just put it in the back there. And then we're gonna have same sort of thing with this jam door. It might be a little tight. You may have to kind of remove it a couple times until it kind of wears itself a spot. If anything, before you put the middle piece on, it may be better to put this jam door on and then push it from the underside here. But you should be able to get it to a point where you can get your fingers at least under one side and pry it off. But that just plugs in right there, covers up the top for your jam door. If you have any sort of jam, you can access the internals in there and you'll be good to go. All right, so here we go. We got everything on, barrel, stock, and it just primes like normal. You just put your thumb here so you can put your hands in here or lower. And you can prime and get that nice, sweet action going on there. And we can put our magazine adapter back in. We've got a worker magazine here. And you know, you can get going with just this, or you can put in the AFG that I've also included. And this is an interesting little piece because instead of using Picatinny like we're kind of used to using in this hobby, I've gone with what they call M-Lock, M-L-O-K, which is developed by Magpul, which is sort of proprietary in its own way, and uses these interesting little nuts in these channels, these little T-nuts here is what they call them. And basically when you're screwing, you put them in, and as you tighten, this turns 90 degrees and then locks and then starts to actually tighten. So when it's in here, you know, it's going that way, and that's what holds your sights, foregrips, you know, everything into this system. As you can see, the bottom of the pump grip has 2 M-Lock channels, which is great. So it means you can use your pump grip as normal, or you can add the mini AFG that's included. This thing, I love it because it allows you to have an orientation like this on the blaster and have kind of an extra palm hold to prime back on. Or you can do what I prefer, is sticking it out slightly to the front, like that, and then having your thumb here and having your index finger on there. And you can pretty much prime this thing with 2 fingers, or you can prime it with 3 fingers, kind of get your whole hand under there if you want to, push like that. It's a great little piece. You have plenty of ways to orient this. I'm gonna go through how you kind of put this together. So you take you have 2 of these nuts here, these T-nuts, and you have 2 screws that are gonna work with them. These are 2 screws that are gonna be a different size and length than the rest of the screws in the kit, so you'll know that these are only for this, and there's 2 of them. So let me get this out of here to make visuals a little bit easier. I'm actually going to use an old pump grip here to kind of show how this works. Most M-LOK, you know, has like it doesn't have an open channel like this does, but again, this is just a great exploration of how this works. So we're going to take the screws and we're just going to put them on there. And we're going to take the the flat top, so it's going to be flat on top like that. All right, and we're just going to thread that in with our fingers. And if I can get this, it's a little tough. Come on, there we go. Okay, and so what I like to do is I like to push the screw all the way until it stops and thread just a little bit until there's just a little gap between the bottom of the T-nut and the actual top of these little pieces, right? So the little gap right here in the thread, right? So in between the materials, like that. That's good. And then you just want to align them so they're all parallel here. This piece, and this piece. And so here it is. What you would do is I'm going to put it in the front. Way, like I explained before, is kind of my favorite way to put it. So you just kind of push these guys in until they want to, there we go. So you can see there is this one poking out on this side of the channel and these 2 here. You can do it, you know, of course, in between. So you can have 2 in between like that. You can, like I said, flip it this way and have them there. So you have that way, or you have it in the front this way. It's up to you. You can do it in any sort of orientation. Just got to make sure that these are parallel and fit in the slot, which can be a little tricky, but there you go. Okay. And I'm going to try to get this on camera. It's a little bit tough, but what you do is when you start to screw, you'll start to notice that turns and then it can't turn anymore. And as you tighten, it'll actually bolt itself down to the channel. So I'm going to try to, all right, so I'm going to try to get it where you can see it. See it turn that 90 degrees, and then it can't go any more than that, and it'll start to tighten like that. And that is really solid. Well, you kind of can't really see it now, and it's kind of hard to see anyway. But on one side of this side, you'll see on the actual AFG, it says do not over tighten screws. And that's important because you're dealing with, of course, metal screws and metal T-nuts. And this system is really meant for steel, I imagine aluminum, polymer, plastics. So generally, you know, this is stuff that doesn't give out very well. Unfortunately, this is 3D printed material, so the more you wrench down on this, the more the print is going to want to try to give out. And you can see here, initially when I made this, it started to kind of tear out to the 3D printed slot and wasn't going to work. So once you start to feel resistance, once you start to really feel it kind of tighten, don't tighten any more than that. This stuff is really, actually has a really, really solid feel, and you won't need any more than that itself. Now to remove it, again, especially on the top rails that don't have this back, you're really going to need to be able to pull this out without seeing this or being able to touch this side of it. And it's really simple. When you unscrew, a lot of the times the M-LOK will turn. Sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes I just take my nail and kind of move the screw until it feels like it's got it's parallel with the slot and it'll come out. Or you can just unscrew it completely like I did with the first one, like that, and just pull it out and just, you know, you'll have to put these back together, but you can do that. It's not terrible. When you're using your pump grip, I'm gonna show it like this, blind, semi-blind, but you know, because you can't really, I'm not gonna really show the other side of it. So, of course, you got that. And then again, you don't want the M-lock too loose. You don't want the M-lock or the T-nuts too tight, because then you won't be able to turn it at 90 degrees and have it lock. So that's why I explained the gap before, the gap in the threading, because that is very important in making sure this is right. But yeah, like I have a little bit of resistance there and I'm stopping. And as you can see, it might be hard to get there, but that's like pretty much 90 degrees in there. And that, I mean, I've got one finger on here and one finger on here, and like that is just great. That makes such a difference. It really does. It's great. I love this thing. But with that, that's the build done. I will kind of get back into a bigger range of field for my view and go over the kind of the final thoughts here. All right, so that was the build. As you can see, it's really quick to put together, and really doesn't even require pretty much, I mean, 2 screwdrivers really is all I needed, and a paper clip, right? So I've loved putting this together. I put it together a couple different times, so obviously I can be pretty quick with it, but if you had any sort of questions, hopefully that build video kind of cleared some things up. And if not, you know, you're welcome to message me here or on Etsy or on Reddit if you have any questions or concerns, if you're someone who's bought a kit or someone who's looking to buy a kit and is still just a little concerned about some different things with it. But yeah, I've been super pumped with it. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys maybe enjoyed the video. This is just kind of more informative than anything. But it's been great to put this together for people, and I hope people enjoy it. Because that's what's important to me, is that the community really gets to enjoy something that you know, I put some time and effort in. And yes, you know, it's been fun for me, but I always get more out of when people get to enjoy something I've made or given to them. So yeah, so that's it. So thank you so much for watching this video that I made. And if you have a kit, post some videos on Reddit, post some pictures, whatever. And yeah, I'm interested to see what people think about it.